Guidebook to Skyrocketing in Consciousness, 2025 to 2027. Consciousness has been rising steadily on the planet for the past 36 plus years.
The Harmonic Convergence in 1987 to 1989 saw many beginning to channel and bring in the light from the beyond. Cryon appeared to Lee Carroll. Alazar and the Stargate were first channeled by Prageet. Greg Braden began his synthesis of spiritual and scientific. Barbara Messiniak first began channeling the Pleiadians, and Bruce Lipton began to open his spiritual awareness, and so many other guides and leaders emerged as spiritual beacons during this time.
In 2012, the Mayan calendar ended, marking a moment when, according to Cryon, humanity chose to move forward toward a path of ascension rather than destruction. 2012 also marked the end of the Mayan calendar and the beginning of a new 26,000-year precessional cycle and an alignment with the center of our galaxy.
Now, in 2025, many astrologers are saying this is the biggest year of our lifetimes for change and acceleration.
Join us now as we interview Pam Gregory about how to make the most of the next 2 years, 2025 to 2027, and what to expect in terms of technological advances, global changes, and the massive expansion of human consciousness that is possible now.
And after the interview, stay tuned for an energy meditation with the Stargate experience, guided by both Prageet and Julieanne, where we will connect with the multidimensional energetic support that is fueling us as we adventure into higher consciousness.
So, welcome to the Guidebook to Skyrocketing in Consciousness. We are so thrilled to be with you, Pam. Welcome.
Yeah, delighted to be with you both, Prageet and Julieanne. Thank you so much for inviting me. Looking forward to it.
So, in this time that we have together, we really want to explore these themes of humanity's timeline of transformation, because the world has changed so much. Just in my lifetime, we've gone from VHS tapes to DVDs to streaming. And now we're in this new, totally radically new time where we have technologies that can change our world completely. And the ways that we're using them are still being determined.
Yeah, and we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, right on. So
we're going to accelerate. Yeah.
So let's dive in, because ultimately we wanted this time to be like a true guidebook for how to make the most of the next 2 years.
Yeah, wonderful. And please, if I'm not being clear enough or whatever, please interrupt me and ask questions as we go. And your intro was beautiful, starting at the Harmonic Convergence in August 1987, but in a way, and I'll be coming to this a little bit later in our talk, I think the seed point for the current spiritual collective that we are in was actually in the 60s.
Yes, that's what I said too.
It's
music, yes.
astrologically perfect for where we are right now, as I'm going to go on to talk about. But if I start at the Harmonic Convergence, this was really, it was a gentleman who was an American author and artist called Jose Arguelles, Arguelles. And he had deciphered the very complex Mayan calendar, and he'd also studied the Aztec calendar. And he felt that the 16th of August 1987 was what he called the Harmonic Convergence. And at that time, there was an equilateral triangle astrologically between 6 planets. There was a grand trine in fire. And although equilateral triangles happen fairly often in astrology, the fact it involved 6 planets was really quite significant, because this was around inspiration for the future. But I think the big thing that really marked that on our calendars for humanity was Jose Arguel really had a lot of publicity about this was a new era of peace, harmony, and spiritual awakening. And he organized really the first synchronized global meditation right across the world at lots of power centers, Mount Shasta, etc. So people were getting together at the same time all over the world on these power centers. And that, whenever we get together, as we well know, in mass meditations, setting the same intention, that group energy is magnified. So that was really the start point. And many, many tens of thousands of people gathered to experience that harmonic convergence. And it certainly had an effect on our consciousness, with so many people starting to channel at that time. And Jose felt that 25 years later, we were going to see the end of the Mayan calendar. And the Mayan calendar stone is phenomenal. Many years ago, when I was 19, I was traveling all over North America, and I went to the museum in the center of Mexico City, and they have this 22-ton calendar stone at the end of a corridor.
Wow.
Single spotlight. And I remember just sitting on the floor for about an hour just looking at this, because it's a very complex calendar. It predicts the eclipses of the sun and the moon, etc. And it stops really at December 21st, 2012. And the Mayans were a highly astronomical culture. They had observatories on the top of their pyramids, many of which have obviously been destroyed now. But they were very, very observant about the movements in the heavens. And so this December 21st, 2012 was the end of what was known as the long count, the Mayan long count of 5,126 years. And it was also the end of what was known as the 13th Baktun, Baktun. And that was quite a powerful time astrologically, because that was the Capricorn solstice. And the sun at that time was quite tightly square Uranus, which is the planet of awakening. It was also conjunct, quite widely, but conjunct the planet Pluto, which is the planet connected to power. So there was a sense of awakening our power at that time. And there were meditations all over the world, as we know. It's interesting also that Neptune, which is the planet linked to unconditional love and source and healing, was then fully in its own sign of Pisces at 0 of Pisces. And it is only on the 30th of March this year moved out of that sign. So from the 21st of December 2012 until the end of March this year, that was like another spiritual stepping stone or episode, if you like, for where we are right now. And this is a very powerful time that we are in, because it's like a whole series of convergences and game changers. And a lot of that is astrological, but not entirely. There's some cosmological factors coming into this as well. Because, for instance, yes, it's the end of the precessional cycle. It's also the end of the 12,000-year descending cycle of the yugas, the Indian yugas. And according to Bibhu Dev Misra, who is a brilliant Indian scholar, the age of darkness, Kali Yuga, ended on the 21st of March this year, just a few months ago. And many of us really felt that. I mean, it was very dramatic for me. I mean, really, I almost left the earth at that point. So it was very dramatic. So many, many people felt that shift in energy and a certain lightness that came in really within days of that happening, that Aries equinox. And so for sure, energetically, that was very powerful. The other thing that's happening right now is that approximately every 12,000 years, the Earth moves through an area of space called the galactic current sheet. And when it does that, it picks up extra light, extra high frequency light, if you like. And just a few months ago, I think it was the James Webb Telescope picked up these bursts of very high level, brilliant light coming from the galactic core, which had never been seen before. And so those bursts of light that are reaching the Earth and, of course, us as humanity, plus the fact that we are at the peak of solar cycle 25 with a lot of solar flare activity, all of these are ingredients for our evolution. Many, many people are talking about new light codes coming in. And these, to me, are the new cosmic codes of creation to birth a new human. That's what I'm seeing in, different modalities. And I'm seeing that a lot. It's interesting. I spent a lot of last week with Ada Austin when she was here in the UK, and she is picking up these cosmic codes of creation in her crystallography in the water that look identical to Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Wow. That's amazing.
Isn't that interesting too? In fact, she shared that crystallography in an interview I had with her a few months ago, so you can find that on my YouTube channel. But that's just the beginning, I think, of where we're headed with this. And you will know as well, Prageet and Julieanne, that because Cryon's talked about this, who you know well with Lee Carroll, and also Greg Braden has talked about this, that about 200,000 years ago, our chromosomes were interfered with, and chromosome 2 and chromosome 7 were spliced together to leave us with 23 chromosomes, which made us more human, but less multidimensional. And that 24th chromosome, which is the one linked to our multidimensionality, is now coming back online. And that is so aligned with the astrology, as we'll see in a moment. And people are starting to feel this, they're starting to feel much more psychically sensitive already.
Alazar talks about that a lot when in the meditations, reactivating, he calls it the non-physical.
Higher dimensional DNA.
Higher dimensional DNA, yeah.
Wow. And that's interesting in itself. The non-dimensional, that's fascinating in itself. So we'll come back to that. And of course, we've had all these ancient prophecies of the Mayan and the Hopi and the Quero all really talking about this fifth world that we're moving into at this time, or the time of the sixth sun. All of those ancient prophecies are coming into play at this time too. And also, many people are talking about the new human and the future human. You've got Lee Harris publishing his recent book, the new human, Richard Rudd, who was the founder of Gene Keys Modern Day Mystery School, talking about the future human. Even Dr. Zach Bush, I think, has been talking about this change in biology. But it's really fascinating, apart from people feeling this shift from carbon to crystalline in their being. Richard Rudd was fascinating when I was talking to him, because he said in his system, the Gene Keys system, on the 30th of January this year, Pluto crossed what he called gate 41. Now, I don't understand Gene Keys, but that's what he said. And he said what that did, and remember, he was in a transcendent state for 3 days when he downloaded a lot of this. He said what that transit of Pluto into gate 41 did was triggered methylone, which I understand is an amino acid, which begins a genetic mutation, not only for humanity, but for every species on Earth.
Wow.
And this led to really the central prophecy in his whole Gene Keys philosophy of the water nymph becoming the dragonfly, that metamorphosis of the water nymph becoming the dragonfly. And I'm even wearing a dragonfly brooch tonight. I don't know if you can see that. But he called that a time of great freedom, that change in state, and the birth of many, what he called siddhis, which are the magical abilities in Indian yogic philosophy that start to birth those as well. So that's really fascinating because, again, that links to the astrology. So we are going through a biological metamorphosis, and I'll get into the astrology in a moment, but the very fact that what we call the dwarf planets, which are planets which orbit largely beyond the orbit of Pluto, so they're further out in space, and they all have, well, generally they have around about a 300-year orbit. but they represent a higher octave of consciousness for us. And they began to be discovered round about the year 2000. And that's 25 years ago, that's ages ago. Well, actually, I think astrology has been going for so many thousands of years, as has humanity. That was really the beginning. And these dwarf planets are just incredibly beautiful because they remind us, or they help us to remember our shamanic connection to the earth, the ancient wisdom of the earth, the rhythms of nature, our connection to all living beings. They're very, very beautiful. And two in particular, there's something that I've referred to as the Wonky triangle. And the Wonky triangle is between three dwarf planets. Pluto, which is the planet known as the planet of transformation. And if you think of the symbolism like a tree that dies and falls in the wood, but it rots down into fertile compost and new earth to make new life. So that's kind of death, transformation, and rebirth. It's linked to the myth of Persephone as well. And that is in very exact geometry to a dwarf planet called Haumea. And Haumea is linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. And in her mythology, she's said to be able to birth babies from all over her body. She can regenerate herself from an old crone to a young maiden, which is a jolly handy skill. We're looking forward to that in the future, because I think she will bring about age reversal, not for vanity, but for vitality and longevity. But she has two other aspects of her mythology. In her fire goddess aspect, she was said to birth the 8 islands of Hawaii. So whether she's birthing babies from all over her body or this fire goddess, new land appearing, she is a very powerful symbol for New Earth, one of the most powerful symbols we have. The other aspect of her mythology is that her partner took some wild bananas from the island they were living on, part of Hawaii, the island they were living on. And the autocratic ruler was going to put her partner to death because he said only the privileged, the elite, could have the best food and only what was left for the ordinary people. And the autocratic ruler had a very powerful army, but somehow Haumea, in summoning her spiritual help and the help of her community, overcame the autocratic ruler. And so she's a very powerful symbol for community, and Aquarius energy is all about that, as we'll get to. And she's known as unity consciousness, the symbol for unity consciousness and New Earth. But she does have this ability to change her state. And then the other kind of pointy bit of the triangle is dwarf planet Sedna. Dwarf planet Sedna has pretty much the longest planet of orbit of any planet we know. It's 11,400 years. She's coming to perihelion now. She goes way out to the edge of the Oort cloud. So when she comes back close to Earth, she's able to bring in a lot of information from other galaxies as well with her, which is very interesting. Now, she'll get to her very closest point to the Earth in 2075. And again, that's 50 years ago. In the future, that's a long time. Well, it isn't if you've got an 11,400-year orbit.
Oh, wow.
And her mythology is that, in short, there are variations on the myth, but in short, she had an inappropriate marriage. She lived in the high Arctic, and she begged her father to come and rescue her. So he came in a kayak and they set off, but a big storm blew up. And in order to save himself, he threw Sedna out of the kayak. She tried to hang on with her fingers. And in order to save himself, he chopped her fingers off. So she floated down to the deep and transmuted into a sea goddess, Inuit sea goddess. And her fingers became new, beautiful sea creatures of dolphins and whales and turtles, which I understand are 15th dimensional, and helping us in this whole metamorphosis, this whole ascension period that we're going through. So she, through a total metamorphosis of state, is very much in this tight geometry. Pluto is 120 degrees to Sedna, and Pluto is 90 degrees to Haumea. So they're in this kind of not equilateral, but very, very tight geometry for the next 3 years. So that is one big signal of this change, not only in consciousness, but change in biology, a literal change of state. And to credit Alan Clay, who runs the Dwarf Planet University, he refers to Sedna as soul consciousness. So we have unity consciousness and soul consciousness here.
Wow. So I have a question, because as you talk about these different planets, you're talking them as a consciousness, which a lot of people don't understand or don't relate to. It's something that Alcazar's talked about for a long time. But if you could say something about that, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think great question, Prageet. I think that the planets are actually probability waves of consciousness. I think that's what they are. And I think they each have a particular pitch or resonance. This is going back to Pythagoras' harmony of the spheres. And that kind of music, if you like, has been picked up in space with sensitive recording instruments. And I think we will learn a lot more about the frequency of each planet, because I actually believe that all of astrology ultimately can be explained by energy and frequency. And I think our birth charts are actually an expression of our unique soul's electromagnetic frequency that is totally unique to us. And I'm intuiting that, but I don't think we're far away from actually discovering that.
Do you think the consciousness of the planets are changing as well?
I think we are in co-creation with them. It's not just that they are a set piece and they're out there and influencing us. It's a two-way conversation. So as we evolve in consciousness, we are evolving those planets and discovering more further and further out in space, because that's part of the astrology as well at this time. So there's a co-creation, there's a weaving, there's an infinity wave between our consciousness and the consciousness of each of the planets, I believe.
It's interesting because, our guide Alcazar has said that Gaia is a consciousness, right? Like Gaia is actually the name for the consciousness of the earth. But he's also said at one point that the energy level of humanity, the awakening of humanity, is actually measured by spirit through the energy field of the earth, which always felt really fascinating to me. And as humanity steps up in our awakening, that Gaia is actually able to bring more of her higher consciousness and emanate it here.
Yeah, it's beautiful, because of course we live on Gaia. We can't be separate. Totally, everything is interconnected. We are one consciousness. The entire series of galaxies, it's fractal, and we are one consciousness. So there's no separation. So yeah, it's just a malleable flux and flow, I think, of an interchange of energy. And I think as we go forwards, and your good friend Dr. David Clements talks about this a lot, but it's part of the astrology too, that we are shifting from density into malleability.
Cool.
And we are going to have to learn our mastery of the invisible. This is about our mastery of the invisible. When we just thought everything out there is just nothing, it's just air and it's nothing. Well, actually, it's jam-packed with information. So,
so empty space is actually where there's like the most energy. It's almost infinite. And this reminds me of what you're saying about Haumea, this potential for regeneration, because it's like as we tap into this invisible and we master those invisible currents of energy, it's like going to transform the very physics of this reality.
100%. 100%. And it's really interesting, Julieanne, because I was listening to Dr. Zach Bush the other day, and he was talking about when we are in embryo and we start as one cell, and then we start to multiply very quickly as a fetus. And I think he said when you get to something like cell replication 127, what starts to happen is that the cells in our embryo start to migrate to the specific geography where they're going to end up. You know, your heart cells start to move to where your heart's going to be, your kidney cells start to move to where your kidney's going to be. But he said the information that directs those cells to those geographies is not within the cell, it's not biological. The information is coming from in between the cells, the physics of information. So it's physics information in the field, not the biological information in the cell.
That's beautiful. And this is something that I've intuited since I was a child. Actually, I was like this really empathic kid. And I used to feel like I should be able to like surround my energy field with living things and heal them. But like I always thought about, because my parents were both scientists. My mom was a nurse and an accountant. My dad was a doctor. And I always thought like I loved science. And I was like, there's some kind of invisible intelligence that's guiding everything.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, Lynn McTaggart's written about this so extensively in her brilliant book, The Field. And it was all about scientific experiments, because she's very precise in her claims, and she always likes to test things out. But she went around the world interviewing some absolutely top quantum physicists and scientists of various kinds to really prove the information field out there. You know, it's a very old book, but it's a great book, absolute bestseller. So
that's kind of interesting, because recently we were invited to go to a human tech conference, leading edge technology using AI to help humanity in many different areas. And before we went there, Alazar said they need to know that these inventions that they're creating, they are, we, the Galactic and whoever, are putting information into the field, and they are accessing it from the field. And so it's time for them to drop the ego about their creation and start working together and drawing in all these new technologies. Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, consciousness always runs ahead, doesn't it? Consciousness is always ahead of us. So, so what's really exciting this week, as of Monday, is the planet Uranus, which is the planet of awakening, the mind of God, and very much sees things from a higher level. It's like an ignition, because it's never linear, it's never smooth, it's never gradual. It's linked to bolts of lightning, you know, flashes of very high energy. It's got an 84-year orbit, and on Monday it came to conjunct dwarf planet Sedna. So it ignited that symbolism, that mythology of metamorphosis. Now that comes to almost exact in September, within 22 minutes of a degree, but it becomes absolutely exact next May. So that's another very clear signal that we are going through a biological change, not only a consciousness change as humanity, but an actual literal biological change as we shift from carbon to crystalline. And then really getting into the astrology, the outer planets all have very different lengths of orbit. Saturn, 29.5 years, Uranus, 84 years, Neptune, 165 years, Pluto, 248 years, and then you've got the dwarf planets, and you've got Sedna, 11,400 years. All of the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, including some of the dwarf planets, indeed, in fact, Homer and Sedna have recently changed sign. They are all changing sign, but my regular kind of what I call my bread and butter traditional planets are all changing sign between last November and next April. Now that's kind of crazy mathematically, because they've all got different lengths of orbit. And to have them all change sign within such a concentrated period of time is quite remarkable mathematically, apart from astronomically. And they are all changing from heavy, slow earth and water signs into air and fire. And air and fire are quick. I mean, we have just put our foot on the accelerator now, and it's not going to come off the accelerator. You know, things are going to happen really, really fast. But a lot of the new developments going forwards are about the out there, about the air. And so much I want to say. So Pluto every time Pluto moves into Aquarius, it was last in Aquarius from 1777 till 1798, but the cycle before that in the 1500s was when Copernicus published his heliocentric theory, that the Earth went round the sun and not the other way around. And that was a paradigm-shattering time. And so every time Pluto has moved into Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, who is a sky god, so it's the out there sky god, we have gone deeper in space and deeper in our understanding of space. It's also linked to aviation. So I knew that we would start to go deeper into space as of last November. And Pluto's going to stay in Aquarius till 2044, almost another 20 years. But we are going to have huge developments in aviation. And also, there's so much I want to say, so I mustn't go out of order here. But anyway, so Pluto, going back to what I started with at the very beginning of this, Pluto and Uranus came together in conjunction. Whenever planets come together in conjunction, it's like a new moon. And they did that in 1965 and 1966. And for any of us, Prageet, who lived through that, that was a time of, the Beatles and the Stones and the hippies and peace and love and community and anti-war, all those anti-war protests, anti-Vietnam War. And it was a huge time not only of peace and love and the beginning of community, incredibly rich creatively, musically, etc. But it was also a very big time of demand for equality. You might remember that, there's women's lib, black, whites, gay lib, black power movement, all of students sitting in universities across the world protesting about one thing or another, but ultimately about equality and freedom of speech. And that was the seed point, the birth point for what is emerging right now, because those planets are now in a very harmonious 120-degree aspect. So they've come to blossom and will continue to blossom of whatever was initiated in the 1960s over these next 3 years. Now, also, you have the planet Neptune right at the midpoint of that. And Neptune is the planet of unconditional love and healing and source and all of those beautiful things. That configuration happens every 500 years, but it doesn't happen holding hands with Saturn, and it doesn't happen with both Saturn and Neptune being at the very first degree of the zodiac, 0 degrees of Aries. This is what I call the creator degree of pure potentiality. And so this is like a whole new start for humanity, because this configuration of, Pluto and Uranus in trine, 120 degrees apart, and exactly at the midpoint, we've got Neptune and Saturn right now. I've gone back sort of thousands of years in the research, as have other people. And according to the brilliant astrologer Ray Merriman, he believes that this is a completely unique configuration for humanity. Wow. With Neptune and Saturn at 0 there, pure potential. So this configuration, Saturn moves on next April, but the Pluto, Uranus, Neptune remain there for the next 3 years, essentially. They are becoming close to exact this July, well, actually this month, actually in a few days, but they become most exact next July, August. Most exact, and then they continue into 2027. And just darting back to Richard Rudd, it's very interesting that when he was talking about this genetic mutation that began on 30th of January this year, that triggered the myathlon, he said that the beginning of the genetic mutation would be complete by 2027. Not obviously the whole thing, because that's going to go on for decades and hundreds of years, but the completion of the beginning of it, the ignition. And the ignition point, I believe, happened starting on Monday, 2 days ago.
Well, that's interesting. Alcazar's been talking about realigning to your original human blueprint. And so that's what's happening. Yeah, it's interesting that this information is coming in from many different directions.
And that's what's thrilling, Prageet, because I get very excited about that kind of synthesis. of, am I listening to a geophysicist? Am I listening to a theoretical physicist like Dr. David Clements? Am I listening to a channeler? Am I, as an astrologer? And I get really excited when all the jigsaw pieces fit together. And you think, wow, it's not just me reading this,
It is wild because it makes it feel inevitable that this awakening is happening and this skyrocketing in consciousness is here now, on time, on purpose. And for those of us who, like with Prageet and I and the Stargate work, what we do is we use high vibrational energy fields to enter into awakened states and take our community with us, right? So like we do these meditations, but like because this is kind of like the ocean that we're swimming in is this quantum field, just from a lived felt sense experience, like the energies that have been coming into the planet and the states of consciousness that have become accessible and more easily accessible, it's just been astounding. And I would say, like, we sent you like a list of dates, and for me it's really since about March of 2024 that we've been like really feeling it, and the acceleration is happening. And it also feels like it's connected with time. So have you found this link between consciousness?
Yeah, it's interesting. Absolutely. When Saturn was moving through Pisces, which it did from March 2023, and it's just moved out on 24th of May this year, I actually said way back, and I was looking at that in early 2023, that was going to be the dissolution of linear time. Wow. Because Pisces is dissolution and Saturn represents linear time. And it seems that time is very linked to consciousness, that when we are in greater density, we are kind of locked into clock time. And as we rise in consciousness, time starts to warp. And, and that's what's exciting. And it's very interesting with the astronauts. What they found is when they left the field of the Earth and they left behind a lot of the gravity, that's when they started to have these incredible experiences and epiphanies.
Oh, wow.
There's an inverse correlation between gravity and consciousness.
Huh. Huh. So that's why the monks are levitating.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And they tend to live at the top of the mountains.
Yeah, they're removed from the density of the morphic field. Alazar has talked about that before. So this is so fascinating. So this is something that way back in 2012, Alazar gave us this image of the awakening of humanity isn't linear, it's exponential. And so it's going to go like this. And he said, beloved ones, like you're right here on that curve.
Yeah.
And so
we're in the mush of the chrysalis.
Yes.
We absolutely are. I'm listening to Veda Austin. She's doing a lot of work with the non-speaking autists at the moment, who are complete geniuses. And they have referred to these times we are in as absolutely unstoppable.
Wow.
And the word skyrocketing, which, is the title for this, is I have to credit Dr. David Clements, because he said at the end of a very powerful meditation on his free Patreon site, humanity is now going to skyrocket. And he's not given to hyperbole, as you know. He's a very quiet,
and that's amazing, because I pulled that title out of the ethers. So, but like if you look at that exponential curve, that's
yeah. And that's absolutely, we are at liftoff now. We are at liftoff now, and it's just immensely exciting. So we're in this very unique planetary configuration, which is going to last until 2027, then gradually start to sort of break up as Uranus moves faster ahead of Neptune and Pluto. If I look back to when those three planets were in conjunction, the time I found was 577 BCE, which I believe was the time of Buddha and Pythagoras. When they were starting to link, as immense thought leaders, they were starting to link divinity and consciousness, and even the whole concept of consciousness at that time. And those three planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, were then in conjunction, because that's a very rare happening astrologically. So we're in very strong Aquarius energy, you know, moving into the age of Aquarius, but Pluto, just as a single planet, will be in Aquarius for almost the next 20 years till January 2044. And that is the sign not only linked to aviation and the out there, it's linked to community, networks, mycelium, tree roots, collaboration. If you look back to every time Pluto has been in Aquarius, and I've done a whole historical study going back to the 1200s, 1500s, 1700s, there is always a weakening of top-down power and a shift of power to the people. So it moves from, and it's not given on a plate, we have to work towards that, but it's a weakening of vertical structure of society from the elite and the wealthy telling the poor people what, to a much more horizontal structure in society of communities, collaboration, grassroots up, people coming together to share and support. So it's going to, this, you know, so the work you're doing is absolutely perfect for the Aquarian energy that we're in. You know, it's all about community. And so it's also Aquarius about freedom. It's also about revolution. So I think we're moving into very revolutionary times in the coming months, and that doesn't have to be kinetic boots on the ground. It can be a revolution of love, a revolution of consciousness, a revolution of choice, that you just opt out of the main. You become self-employed. You kind of remove yourself. It's a cosmic revolution. I think it's a galactic revolution. And so a lot of things are going to change as we move through these next 3 years. If I look at another seed point here in this planetary configuration I've talked about, Neptune and Pluto were together, conjunct like a new moon, the last time in 1891 to 1893. And that was the time of the beginning of quantum physics, when Max Planck basically threw out the old physics and stated that matter is derived from consciousness. There was a shift towards the invisible, and that was over 100 years ago. But those planets are now in positive geometry as well as part of this overall configuration. And so we are moving, partly because Uranus and Pluto are in air signs, we are moving towards our whole experience becoming more ethereal and becoming more invisible. And that's why things like consciousness, our thinking, our emotional state are going to become a top priority. Whereas in the past, it's just kind of, oh, it's all woo-woo and give me the proof.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no tangibility to it. But of course, we're accumulating truth, not only through your own wonderful work, but the work of Lynn McTaggart. She's got a tab called Evidence on her website where you can see how she reduced violence in the Middle East with meditators, etc. Dr. Joe Dispenza. You know, there are many great thought leaders. We have a ton of evidence now of the mastery of our consciousness and our frequency. So this is going to be the currency of the future. The currency of the future is going to be how much love do you have in your heart?
Right.
It's going to be heart coherence as part of that frequency.
And people are going to start relating to each other from that place. That's the beautiful thing. I see it already in our wonderful community, but it's going to be happening out there in the world. And that's what's so exciting.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it's almost like we're going to become more and more transparent. And so we'll be able to feel each other way more. And I think that's where that currency of the heart coherence and as humanity, as more and more people awaken their sensitivity, but also that like the cognition of the invisible being, like these invisible fields being real, starts to like land for people, we'll realize how powerful we are as we come together in those fields and how we can change everything. And this is what like energy healers have been doing for eons, is like the invisible field that brings balance to the physical is just going to get stronger.
It's very interesting. Some people might have heard me talk about this, but back in March 2023, at the end of the night, I had a super sharp dream. It was pin sharp, and I'll never forget it. And it was way better than my eyesight. So it was obviously a kind of third eye dream that I walked, it only lasted about 20 seconds, but at 30 seconds, I walked into a room that was empty, although it was filled with pink and peachy, sparkly diamond light. And the only thing in the room was a mirror. And I walked up to the mirror and I looked in the mirror and I was just pure light. I was the light body, and my eyes were absolutely extraordinary. I was just kind of part of source, and I started to levitate in the dream. And then the alarm went off, and I said some very rude words because I wanted it to go on forever. But that was not just a promise for me, but it was a promise for humanity in terms of where we're moving to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you talked about us being blast off, and with that image of the rocket taking off, it has to overcome the gravity, and that's where we as humans are in right now, the pull of the old and the push towards the new. And so many people are still struggling with the pull of the old, and their minds wanting to go back to the security of the old, and that we have to let go of that and just allow this expansion to happen.
We have to trust the invisible. You have to hitch your star to a wagon. We have to trust the invisible. Yeah. And it's easier in big groups such as you have, because there's that support mechanism of other people having similar experiences. And what you were saying, Julieanne, as well, about we're going to shift from the mind to the heart. We're going to be able to feel, as you said, I've been talking about this in my videos, to feel how the other person feels. We're going to be able to see their energy field. So there's going to be no lying, no deception, because you can see it. It's going to be impossible to hurt another living being, because we'll be so connected, almost Lemurian, so connected and so in tune with the harmony of nature and every sentient being. You couldn't possibly hurt another living being. So that's the end of war. That's the end of hunger. That's the end of poverty, because you'll want to give and share.
And it's also an unlocking of our innate ecstatic selves. Like, I love Richard Rudd, and so like he's done a series on the ecstatics, but it's like, if you can imagine that level of sensitivity and connectedness, like you can just go out, and Alcazar's given this image before, like you can look at a flower, and if you can really take in the presence of just like a tiny little dandelion even, like suddenly there's like an ecstatic, mystical exchange, like a divine union that can happen. And so it's like, this whole reality can become far more multidimensional, truly, but multidimensional in terms of what's already hidden here in the earth.
Beautiful.
And as I was doing a bit of research for this talk today, I was looking at the human design prophecy about 2027. And what really struck me is it's so in alignment with everything that you're saying. It's like yet another convergence point where the synthesis is that essentially Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design, said we were going to be moving from a mental and survival-based world into this like emotional solar plexus mutation that happens, and it creates this incredibly like this like refinement of the emotional energy of humanity. And so we become a more like intuitive, free people, and we're moving from tribalism into like the individual flourishing.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's exactly where we're going, and it's happening rapidly, and we just have to be very discerning as to our choices. And I think you're absolutely right, to keep that sense of awe and wonder and have the eyes of a child. And I have very busy weeks. I work at least a 70-hour week. It's it's really full on, but it is non-negotiable for me that I do my morning walk in ancient woodland every morning. My neighbor's dog sitting, tapping his watch, waiting for me. And any weather, we are out. And this morning it was just so beautiful in ancient woodland. And I go to something I call my dragonfly stream. And there's normally, I don't see a soul. I don't see anybody. And I'm in woodland that's hundreds and hundreds of years old. And we just sat by the dragonfly stream. It's very well known for dragonflies, and just, I was like a 3-year-old child again. It was magical. You could feel the elementals all around. And I have to do that to recharge myself before I live through a screen for 10 hours a day. It is absolutely non-negotiable for me.
I love that. And so like we're calling this the guidebook. So like to me, this is a huge key for how to thrive in this time. And Alcazar was just saying something very similar last night. We were on a telesummit with John Burgos, and he was saying that it's really important to be selective about what you endeavor to create, because there are these huge creative energies coming to the planet right now, and it is meant to be used for human creation, but it's also meant to be like involuted and taking us like into these like states. And so it's like we can make these choices where we carve out an abundance of time and go like very intentionally into like the bliss that's here for us.
It's vital. It's vital to tap into that in order to broadcast it out to the rest of humanity. We can only broadcast that for the greater good if we feel it in ourselves. Because this evolution, it's happening through our physicality. And I really felt, particularly at that retreat in France I've been to, I felt that we, all of us that were there, were embodying New Earth. We were love, we were joy, we were peace, we were gratitude. So it's only when you feel, and that's, I think, the part of the purpose of this, that we are birthing it through our physical bodies. And then we can see it in our reality if we feel it within ourselves. But it has to come from within us, because we have to live from the inside out and stop living from the outside in terms of deference to external authority figures or scattering our power or listening to the news or, any of that stuff. And so, because you both asked for some kind of guidebook to the future, and for me, it's incredibly simple, which is always turn inwards. Turn inwards, drop into the breath, drop into the heart, have their feet on the grass, stare at a blue sky, listen to the bird song, hug a tree. And it sounds kind of crazily oversimple and almost trivial, but it's in those states of bliss and pretty much transcendence. We embody it, and then we can share it. And we can, if we embody it in ourselves as one being, we can influence an awful lot. We can infect a lot of people with that frequency as we move about our world. And we can even do it on Zoom calls.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really powerfully, actually. It's interesting. But this is something Alcazar has been cultivating in the Stargate community for years. We come together on these live streams, and we can even do it right now because we have a bunch of Stargaters with us, and just say like, connect your energy together. And so we can just invite everyone, just take a moment, close your eyes, and intend to connect.
And there's an energetic field that starts to grow as we do that. And it's just an indication of the morphic field and the connectedness that's always there. And
100%.
when you put your hand up, Jules, you've moved the camera.
Oh, we turned that off. That's not fair. Come back. All right, I'll fix that. Enjoy our...
Okay, there you are.
Back. You're both back.
Yeah,
we're back. We're here. So beautiful. So let's move into a little bit. I'm curious if you can tell us some of so society is changing really fast. Can you give us a few things to look out for in terms of societal changes, also Earth changes?
Yeah, I think Earth change is going to be significant for natural and unnatural reasons. I mean, partly Gaia is going through her own rebirth, but I think there are other factors at play with this as well. So I am expecting more seismic activity, both earthquakes and volcanoes. Volcanoes are very active at the moment, and even underwater volcanoes. And those eruptions may well, I believe, bring up new land masses from the sea. They could even be areas where ancient Lemuria was, and they become new Lemuria, as it were. And when they come up from the sea, and I do believe this will happen in the coming months and years, they will be largely unpolluted and pristine earth, land, with lots of, I mentioned a couple of times that there was a gigantic underwater mountain range that was discovered a few months ago off the coast of Chile that nobody even knew about. And it had all these new sea creatures and plants, surrounding the underwater mountain range. So it's this kind of thing that will literally become new Earth for us. So I definitely think more seismic activity for a period of time, and not to panic about that. Just whatever happens, do not go into fear. We'll be guided as to where we need to be. I also think there will be more, at one level, social unrest. I think a lot of people will be choosing to leave the mainstream more and more and just think, do you know what, the narrative of the play just isn't hanging together for me, so I'm leaving the theatre. I think that will happen more and more. I think certainly communities, networks, and they could even form they could develop their own form of microcurrency almost that is kind of out of mainstream currency. We are going to see enormous developments in technology of all kinds, particularly communication technology. If I look back in history, if I look at the time the first telegraph system was begun in 1858, that was when Uranus was in Gemini, which it is again as of Monday this week. And it's very linked. Both Uranus and Pluto and Aquarius are very linked to communication, whether you're talking about the Pony Express, way back in time, or whether you're talking about the beginning of the first newspaper in Germany in 1605, whether you're talking about the birth of the internet, which really began, I think the first internet transmission was in 1964, very close to that Uranus-Pluto conjunction. So communication, big theme. New developments in aviation, big theme. I think we're going to have flying cars very soon. I know prototypes are being developed. I've heard Nassim Harriman say within the next 10 years, he thinks we're going to be able to teleport.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have more drone deliveries. We're going to discover an enormous amount about the cosmos. I think we're going to reconnect to our galactic family in a much bigger way that will be immensely exciting. Yes, all of us are going to be developing much greater psychic sensitivity, healing ability, telepathic ability, etc. I think our computers, smartphones, etc. are going to be ancient very soon. They're going to be ancient. We're going to go way beyond those in terms of how we communicate. And ultimately, I think the computers we have now are kind of training wheels for telepathy. So local transport will change dramatically because Uranus is in Gemini, and every time we've had that, there has been an evolution in local transport. The bicycle was invented at one of the previous cycles, excusing the pun, of Uranus in Gemini. And so things like the bicycle, a lot of the railway developments, again, I'm thinking back to 1858 when Uranus was in Gemini. The London Underground was developed then. Wow. At that time. So it's very linked to your local neighborhood transport. And I've just been hearing something in South Korea. They're working with magnetics to develop what they call a glide pod, which is completely silent and has no pollution whatsoever and works on magnetics and sort of glides above the ground at the level of the cherry blossom trees, which is beautiful. So I think we are going to see jumps, absolute jumps. This is not going to be, you could do A and B and C and D. No, it's going to be jumps in just downloads people will have. Leadership is going to change out of all recognition because it's no longer going to be the old greybeards. We're done with that. It's going to be younger people, innovators, visionaries, pioneers who develop an idea or a concept, and a load of people say, I want to be on your team.
Yep.
I want to be part of that. And that's starting to happen already. And so, these kinds of jumps, I think, are going to be extraordinary. And I think we are going to move into a time where almost we don't have vocabulary for it, because it will be so kind of Lemurian. It's going to be so, I've noticed myself that all the colors are lit up. It's just like somebody's turned the volume on the color up.
Everything you turned it up.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's it does feel like that. I feel the trees kind of humming with life force. And the birds and the plants, and I chat to the ponies and the wild donkeys every morning, and there's this real sense of every living being connecting with each other in oneness. That's really thrilling, and a remembrance of not just an evolution, as you say. It's an involution, a remembrance of where we've been, and a lot of ancient wisdom from ancient times is going to come back. I think discovery of ancient technologies, I mean, what they're discovering under the pyramids right now, I think is just the very, very beginning of rediscovering ancient technologies. Free energy, magnetism, as a force we can use. Cryons talked about that, magnetism, use free energy going forwards. I think a lot of ancient cities, temples, civilizations are going to be discovered under the sea, because although we've got stronger telescopes going out, and a new dwarf planet that has a 25,000-year orbit was just discovered last month.
Wow. With
a dark energy camera that can go much further out in space, equally we're going to be able to penetrate much more deeply into our seas and really discover what's going on deep, and about the inner earth beings. And those high intelligences that live within our earth. So it isn't just the out there, it's the in here. And all we can discover from primary water, which is very pure and unpolluted and lives under, is underneath the mantle of the earth. All of these things are just going to provide us with a kind of purity of a whole new beginning for humanity and nature and Gaia and all of the galaxies. It's fractal. If it happens here, we're not insulated. It's like dominoes. It's like Russian dolls.
Well, Alazar has a very interesting perspective about the impact that Earth and humanity's awakening is going to have on the rest of the universe.
I'd love to hear.
Well, I think we should let Alazar talk about it, because in a few moments when we're ready. But essentially, okay. What Alazar says is that the Earth is a very unique place in the universe, and that many, many beings from different enlightened civilizations in the stars have come here, agreed to forget who they are, put on this bodysuit so that we all look alike.
Similar, yeah.
And effectively, that this is going to have an impact on oneness in the rest of the universe, because there's actually like conflict out there in the universe. And so as humanity has been lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we've been incarnating and we've been mixing and merging our DNA, that as we reawaken and we remember who we truly are, there's actually a compassion force that is being cultivated here that will ripple out.
Yeah, I said compassion is one of the gifts of humanity to the universe.
And he said that on this planet, on Earth, is the first time that this particular experiment has been done in this universe, where it's all of these civilizations coming together.
And that's fascinating, because I'm seeing this astrology as completely unique. I haven't been able, because usually you can go back and within a few decades, few hundred years, you can find, okay, that's when it happened before, but I can't find a time when it happened before. So it's all being fed in from different points of view, that we are, and Dr. Jude Curran, the cosmologist, says this is a completely unique jump for humanity. So it's thrilling, and it's thrilling to hear that about compassion. And I wonder if that's why we're experiencing so many real horrors and tragedies now, that it's birth more compassion within us.
Yes, I truly believe that that's what's happening. I got this image, it's kind of silly, but like, those Hot Wheels cars that kids used to have, and you would have to pull back the car so that the wheels would get charged. And the further you pulled them back, the faster they would shoot forward. That's how I see what's happening with society right now, truly.
Catapult.
Yep. And it seems like we're regressing, and that can feel really concerning. And I don't want to minimize that. I do have like real hope that it will stimulate this like just deep claiming of people's power again, and the power of community, and the ability we have, the responsibility we have to actually take care of each other.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And it's all about where you put your focus and attention, because wherever you put your focus and attention is going to expand. So if we put it on the awful stuff, we'll get more awful stuff in our reality. If we put it on love and joy and sharing, we'll get more of that in our reality. And I'm really rigorous about that myself, because I've got to walk my talk with that. But the more of us do that, there's a momentum that builds. I mean, I just had a very simple idea of starting up a free 15-minute meditation, 7 p.m. UK time. And I've got because there's no tech with it. So I think thousands of people across the world join in, because they report back kind of telepathically that they all see the same vision of this tsunami of love that's building with the people, the animals, all living beings coming together, and the web of light around the earth getting stronger and brighter, and more very tall, benevolent galactic beings coming in to support us and cheer us along. And the reports are so similar. You know, there's certain themes that people report back. So clearly there's a lot of telepathy happening there. And just the fact that we come together at a certain time with the same intention, we're welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love, really, I think, is building that momentum. Of course, people are doing this kind of thing. You're doing it. You know, people are doing it all over the world, but it's all adding to this momentum of love and compassion and joy in the world, that we are not going to keep doing what we've been doing round and round the hamster wheel. You know, we have now broken out of the tram tracks.
Wow. So one last question. What would you say to people that see all this as woo-woo, and that the world is breaking down, and how are we going to survive, and how we have to get rid of all the immigrants and all the things that are happening out there in the world? What do you say to people that are still very much attached to that old way of being?
Apart from what I just shared, a simple thing I often say is, just as an experiment, say for the next month or so, look at a challenging relationship you have, which may be your boss or your sibling, you know, whoever, and send them love. Ho'oponopono them to death. Infinity wave them to death. Send them love, as opposed to getting into arguments. And it just, don't feel you have to be right, and don't feel you have to be in judgment and I'm right, you're wrong. Let that go. Shift to a higher state of divine neutrality and send them love. And at the end of the month, see how that relationship has changed. As a game. Just do it as a game. But then, if that works, do it in a more widespread way, that you live in a state of love, not romantic, fluffy love, but in a state of love, loving all the beings that you come into contact with, and see what a difference that makes in your life and how it changes the dynamics.
Beautiful answer. Thank you.
I love the experiment, the invitation to actually live and experiment with that. It's beautiful.
You have to share that with my brother.
You know, it's funny. You mentioned the Pony Express at one point, and Cryon, when we were in Sedona, gave this channeling where he was basically saying that during the times of the Pony Express, like the brightest minds were getting together, and they were like, how can we build a faster horse? Like not knowing like what was about to come. And he was saying, this is what is about to happen with society, with humanity, is like there are some surprise inventions and innovations coming that are going to change everything. And one of them that he's talked about for years is that there will be a lens that will show us multidimensional energy. And when we have that, it will, like, people will start to point it at different things, and they're going to be amazed.
Well, I think Nassim's work is going to bring all kinds of incredible things.
Yeah, we love Nassim Haramein.
Yeah.
And we're rooting for his gravity control version of space travel.
Me too.
Which, if you don't know, it's essentially like in the same way that there are pressure gradients that in the atmosphere that would create like a tornado or something. It's a pressure gradient, but with gravity. And so instead of accelerating and you like get pulled back, it's like there's this gravitational control that can like rapidly accelerate with 0 G forces. And with like combined with this potential for free energy, it's like we can be free to explore the galaxy and beyond. So,
and what's that going to do to our consciousness? If we think of the astronauts, going to the moon or whatever, the experience they had with Edgar Mitchell, and he set up ions after that because he had such epiphanies in his space travel. So, we're absolutely on a precipice with all of this, and it feels so exciting once you're committed to this path, together with the other mavericks, outliers, trailblazers, people who don't fit, bridge builders. You're in a good team, because we are creating something really unique and very loving and very beautiful, I think.
I'm looking forward to swapping my car for a flying one.
Don't know how it's going to be regulated, but it can be fun.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that like those cars are going to have to be self-driving because of the way that all of the propellers work. So it's actually impossible for a human to drive them. So
we'll see. We do it with our consciousness.
Yeah, right. We'll just skip ahead to the galactic reality. So thank you so very much, Pam. It's been such a pleasure to hear your perspective, and we would love to shift. It feels like it's time to get Alazar's perspective. And for anybody who maybe knew, Alazar is the guide that Prageet started to channel in 1988 unexpectedly during a massage. And he, a year later, gave Prageet the image of the Stargate in 1989.
And so, beloved ones, we greet thee, 'tis Alazar, and it is indeed a great honor for us to be with you at this moment of now, and to hear the beautiful words and energies from this young lady who carries so much power and presence and love. As you have heard, and as each one of you knows deep inside, this transition that you are bringing forth for yourselves and for the earth and beyond, it is not only happening, it is not only accelerating, but it is drawing into each one of you the potential for a great shift in your own reality on all levels and dimensions. Yes, the physical body can start to youth itself. We have worked on many in this process. But to allow the opening to the other frequencies that is within this human form and beyond, the higher aspects of self, the super consciousness that is waiting for you to expand your energies so more of your consciousness can be lived in the physical human form. Beloved ones, the universe is waiting for you. There are right now around your earth hundreds of craft from many, many different benevolent civilizations from around your galaxy, your universe, and even some from beyond, who are watching, who have been drawn here, called by the intention of humanity as a whole, for it is time. And so, as they are drawn here, they are available to support. And those who are relaxed and open and receptive can start to feel the support that is being shared. We in the Stargate experience connect with the Galactic in many ways, inviting their support to rapidly evolve those who are working with them. And so, beloved ones, it is not to move into fear as you watch the collapse around you, but to focus, as you have already heard, on the love for self and love for those around you. And then as you develop this love, the love for your nature, the love for the amazing environments that exist here on your earth. And this love will dissolve the barriers and the limitations, and you'll start to experience parts of yourself that you did not even know existed. Beloved ones, relax and allow. Celebrate the changes. Express gratitude daily for all that you are receiving. The beautiful flower, perhaps so small on the ground that you normally would not notice. Stop, look, and feel, and be amazed at how this beautiful, tiny little flower has a vibrancy. Beloved ones, you are beginning to be able to open to the environment, to the nature, to the trees and the animals in ways that you have not done before, and to hear them responding to your love. These are beautiful times, and we are honored to be sharing them with you.
And so, beloved ones, we invite you to relax in this moment and just allow your consciousness to expand a little. You have heard so many things through this beautiful one, Pam. She has expressed the many potentials that are written in your very stars for where you can go as a society. But individually, you can move far more rapidly. And so we wish to inspire you, beloved ones. This is where humanity is going. Cryon said in your 2012, and we have been saying for years also, that humanity is on the pathway of awakening as an entire planetary civilization. You are moving toward these bright potentials. How fast you move is up to you. But can you, for a moment, just imagine these quantum leaps and bounds? Can you imagine what it will feel like when you skyrocket in consciousness? Can you imagine humanity becoming a civilization that can navigate the stars? And now, with what this beautiful astrologer has said about these astronauts who have had major insights upon leaving the gravitational orbit of the Earth. And can you recognize that this is why having a kind of inner lightness, focusing on this light within you, growing, expanding, exploring, navigating, it's the key to speeding up your process individually and collectively. For yes, the responsibility can feel heavy in these times. And so many have allowed themselves to simply be shut down because with the child of a heart, they said, hey, can we do something about this? Perhaps they saw a homeless person on the street and they started to cry. And the parents said, oh, you have to keep moving. There is nothing we can do for them. And so the child shuts down in order to survive. Nothing wrong in this, but what can happen as humanity begins to empower itself again is that the very problems of your society can become the launch pads for innovation. Your whole earth can be transformed. And as this starts, it will be such a beacon of light that it will become infectious as you start to feel powerful. And you start to see that with these quantum leaps and bounds in your consciousness, you feel the oneness with all living things. Cleaning up your planet will be a joy. Beloveds, these are the potentials you are sitting upon. Energize them. Imagine them. This one, Pam, does a brilliant job of curating selections of this good news, these innovations, so often coming from the young ones on the planet. So we invite you just to feel the lightness for a moment, feeling into the possibility that awakening is truly occurring on this your earth, that an inner blossoming is possible, and that the true adventure is an adventure in consciousness, collective care, and exploring the true nature of your universe. So,
short meditation, perhaps?
Yes, we would love to share a short Stargate energy experience. So we always turn our cameras off for these, and we'll invite you just to relax, go inside. And a few things to understand. So this is an energy transmission. However, if you're new to the Stargate, understand that it is actually your free will and your choice to experience these energies that's creating the field around you. And so it's connected with this global energy field, but you're the one who opens the door. So throughout the meditation, we'll be asking you to invite various things like the energy of the earth. And it's important if you want to have a strong experience, actually ask inside for those things. So we'll move into an energy transmission now, and we'll see you on the other side.
And so we invite you just to close your eyes, relax. There's nothing to do. Let the body be comfortable, being seated or lying down. And just take a moment and feel your own self. This meditation will be guided by Alazar, coming through Jules and myself. And in the meditation, we'll be inviting you to ask for a few things which we will guide. The first of which is inviting the energies of the earth, the energy, the consciousness of Gaia, to connect with you, to come up into your body, into your energy fields. So let us start like that. And we suggest that you keep your eyes closed throughout the meditation, because energies will be gently building up within you and around you. And if you open the eyes, then that energy dissipates. If you allow it to build, it can bring beautiful experiences and perhaps very positive changes in your life.
So, beloved ones, we greet thee. 'Tis Alazar, and we invite you to simply relax. In the Stargate work, there is nothing to do. It is just the allowing of these energy fields to gently form around you. And as we have said, it is your asking that opens the door to these multidimensional energetics. And so we always begin by connecting to the energy of the earth, the energy of Gaia. And so we invite each one of you now just to ask inside for the energy of the earth.
We call for the presence of Gaia to bring her energies up into our body, into our energy field. And just allowing for the possibility that the earth can and will respond to you. Do not be worried if you do not feel the energy right now. It will be gently getting stronger throughout this meditation. And for those of you who are familiar with the structure of the Stargate, we invite you now just to ask inside for a Stargate, the consciousness of the Stargate, the etheric Stargate, as we call it, to come down around you. For those of you unfamiliar with the Stargate, simply ask for a pyramid to come down around you. It's the asking is the most important. The consciousness of the Stargate will respond to you individually.
And so just asking silently inside, we are calling for the presence of an etheric Stargate.
And the Stargate will start to form around you energetically. You might even sense a subtle presence around you. And now asking inside for the activation of the Stargate, which is giving it permission, giving that consciousness a permission to work with you.
And so we call for the activation of all the Stargates around the world.
And as you do this, your etheric Stargate will start to radiate a very, very soft, gentle energy to you. And as you relax, we are going to vibrate all the Stargates, all the pyramids around the world, vibrating them a little faster and a little faster. And as we do so, we move up through the energetic layers or the energetic dimensions. And so as we start this process now, we are vibrating your etheric Stargate, and already we are moving up into the frequency ranges of that which you could call the fifth dimension. And as we continue to vibrate your Stargate faster, we merge into the sixth dimensional energies, moving through those frequency ranges and merging now into the energetic of the seventh dimension.
And here in your seventh dimensional frequencies, we bring your Stargate to a gentle pause, and we invite you just to ask inside for a strong seventh dimensional energy field.
We call for a strong seventh dimensional energy field in all the Stargates around the world, whether they are hearing us right now as we transmit live, or whether you are hearing a recording. For these energetics are happening in the quantum field, beyond time, beyond location, always available. And so we ask you to relax into this seventh dimensional energetic. And as you relax, these gentle vibrations actually vibrate you on a cellular level, even down to the very DNA. And as you may have noticed, we mentioned earlier, you have a non-physical DNA, which has been inactive. But these energies, these vibrations can begin to awaken and reveal to you what you have been holding in your field, but unaware of. Access to your past lives, past skills, for example. So as you simply relax into this gentle field, slowly, slowly, your own energy will begin to harmonize with the seventh dimensional energetics around you. It is not something you do, it happens quite naturally, just by relaxing, just by being open and receptive. Very good.
And so we continue again to vibrate all the stargates faster and faster. And as we do so, we are moving up into the 8th dimensional frequencies and continuing to accelerate.
Into the 9th now, moving very rapidly, merging into the frequency ranges of the 10th and continuing in an upward spiral into the energetics of the 11th dimension now. And finally, in this meditation, merging, raising our energies up into the 12th dimension, where again we bring this vibration to a pause at this 12th dimensional energetic level.
And we ask each one of you now just to invite a strong 12th dimensional energy field.
We call for a strong 12th dimensional energy field in all the stargates around the world. And as you ask, then these 12th dimensional energies begin to radiate to you. And in a similar way, just by relaxing, just by being open and receptive, your own energy field will continue to rise until you are in harmony once more with the 12th dimensional energies around you. And when that occurs, you also become far more sensitive to the benevolent beings that are available to assist humanity in this awakening process. And so we would like to introduce them to you, just a small taste of what is possible. And so it is important that each one of you ask as we guide you, because the guides respond to you individually. And so just asking from that heart space, each one of you asking now for the presence of the angelic realm.
And so we are calling for the presence of the angels.
And as you ask, feel, here they come, just feeling the energy gently changing around you as the angels come closer, feeling their presence, noticing the shift in the energy around you. You can invite them to come closer if you wish. Come closer. And just relax into the loving, angelic energies. They came simply because you asked. Very good. And now another beautiful being, an ascended master, whom we call the beloved, the Blessed Mother. She is the one known as Mary or Maria, mother of this one, Yeshua, Jesus. And so we invite each one of you now to ask inside for the presence of the Blessed Mother.
So we are calling for the presence of the Blessed Mother.
And feel, again, as you ask, here she comes, feeling her energy, divine motherly energy, gently coming closer. Her energies start very gently and then they get stronger as you allow yourself to receive her loving presence. Mary, Maria, coming to you, joining the angels, creating a field of oneness around you.
And another ascended master who is also very well known, the one known as the Buddha, wishing to bring his presence to each one of you.
So each one of us asking inside now, again, from the heart, just the desire to feel the presence of the Buddha. We call for the support and the presence of Lord Buddha. And as you ask again, feel, here he comes, the Buddha, bringing his energy into this global meditation, beyond time, beyond space, coming to you in this moment of now, feeling the support of the Buddha, simply because you have asked. And after a moment, he merges his energy with those who have come before, creating even stronger field of oneness around each one of us. And another beautiful master, she is from your China, her name is Kuan Yin, and she brings with her a depth of love and compassion. And so we ask each one of you to ask inside now for the presence of Kuan Yin.
We call for the presence of Kuan Yin.
And feel, here she comes, Kuan Yin, bringing a very beautiful, very subtle energy to each one of us, bringing the vibration of compassion. Open your hearts. Compassion is sorely needed on your earth at this time. And as the others have done, she merges now with them, creating more energy in the field of oneness. And now, a taste of others who are available, those whom we call the star families, those benevolent beings from different planetary civilizations around your universe and beyond. Just a taste, as we call them, into this meditation. And so we'll start with those whom we call the Arcturans. And so be open to the possibility. So just asking inside for the presence and support of the Arcturans.
We call for the presence of the Arcturans.
And as always, just feel. Here they come in their light bodies, coming into this meditation, feeling their energy gently surrounding you, bringing their loving support. They have been in that state that you call enlightenment many millions of your Earth years ago. Their whole society vibrates in a high level of enlightenment. They merge their energy with the field, and we invite now the Pleiadians.
And so asking inside, we are calling for the presence of the Pleiadians.
And here they come, the Pleiadians. Another gentle shift in the energy, inviting them to come closer. Bring more of your presence here. The Pleiadians. Yes. We call them the star families because, beloved ones, before you came to the earth so many lifetimes ago, before then you lived in some of these civilizations around your universe. You are beyond ancient. Your spirit was never born, will never die. And these physical bodies are simply transitions from one experience to another. And so one more star family, just to complete this meditation. They are the ones whom we call the Lyrans, a more ancient star family. So each one of you now asking inside for the Lyrans to join us in this meditation.
So we call for the presence of the Lyrans.
And feel, here they come, the Lyrans bringing their energy into this beautiful field of oneness. Very good. And so you are being held by these masters, by these enlightened ones. You are being vibrated by their presence. And so now we invite you to bring your focus, your awareness to your own energy. Just sense your own energy. And can you see can you feel, can you sense that your vibration has become more elevated? Change has already touched you in ways that are not so obvious right now for most of you. But just acknowledge the vibration that is occurring inside. And then become more aware of your physical body, feeling yourself in your body, coming fully back into the physical body, and still with your eyes closed, just becoming aware of the room around you and feeling your place in your room. And then, without rushing, slowly, slowly, when you are ready, allowing the eyes to come open and to come fully back into the room. Okay. Come back on the chair. We have a roaming camera here. Jules is just adjusting. So, welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. Pam, I muted you during the meditation. Let me unmute you.
Thank you. It's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, just a small taste. When we work on a longer time frame, we go into beautiful depths and heights and experiences of many different beings working with us. And it was interesting during that experience, I heard Alazar saying that astrology will evolve. It won't be about the planets. It will be about the various galaxy movements.
Whoa.
Woo! No pressure there then.
So you better get on it already. You can be the leader.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Because, the whole concept of linear time is going to dissolve.
Wow.
So, that's a big jump for astrology. So.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a big jump for all of us in our whole life experiences. Bring it on. That's what I say.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I suppose you may have to have a tour of the galaxy, Pam.
Yes. I have to check it out first.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can help with that. Yeah.
No, it was a really beautiful experience, and thank you so much for being making me part of it. I loved it. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Well, thank you for accepting our invitation. It's such an honor to have this conversation and to share this synthesis of wisdom and information and scholarship that you're bringing about the change that's happening right now. We were so inspired by your YouTube videos that you're sharing that we wanted to really create a kind of focused in update essentially on the transformation.
Yeah, thank you so much, because it's wonderful to hear Alazar validating it and agreeing. It's wonderful. Thank you.
If people would like to follow your work, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, just Pam Gregory Official on YouTube. That's where I'm most active right now, because I want to be able to share a lot of material for free to get to a large number of people quickly to help them through this transition. And just my website, pamgregory.com. And that's it for now. I'm not doing any writing at the moment. It's just too slow. So yeah, the YouTube channel is where it's at.
Beautiful.
Okay, well, a great joy, and I'm really happy to share this with our community.
Thank you so much. It's been a delight to share with you both. God bless you.
Much love.
Much
Take
love.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.